Hello, my name is Mr. Chipman, and I teach biology and AP biology at Murray High School in Murray, Kentucky. This is 5.5 Irrigation Methods, continuing our study in Unit 5 of AP Environmental Science. Let's talk about irrigation. Worked in an irrigation team for a summer for the University of Missouri, and really enjoyed my summer and learned a lot about irrigation and other things. Had a great time. It was really fun doing agricultural research. What is irrigation? Well, we know what irrigation is, putting water on plants. 70% of the globe's freshwater use is irrigating plants, which is kind of crazy. 70%. Obviously, it's essential to global agriculture. We are all thankful for irrigation because we all like to eat. But it is a major cause of water scarcity, ecosystem disruption. There has to be a balance. Maybe there's not. So let's look at the different kinds of not ecosystems. Let's look at the different kinds of irrigation. This is called furrow irrigation. This is the oldest kind of irrigation, the simplest kind of irrigation. Also, one of the worst. All right, so let's look at this. Water basically flows through those trenches, waters the plants, which is good. Watering plants is good. It's very inexpensive, easy to set up, easy to work, right? Literally, like a kid can walk down those rows and poke holes in those big, long plastic pipes. I know because I was the kid that was doing that at one point in my life, really young kid doing that. The drawbacks for this is approximately 30% of that water is lost to evaporation, to runoff, promotes soil erosion, can contribute to salinization, which we're going to talk about salinization in a little bit. In a cornfield like this, it's less likely to happen because corn will take as much water as you can give it almost, but in other types of crops, maybe this is not going to be as efficient. Flood irrigation is another type of irrigation. Here we have a nice stock image. Thank you, Alamy. This is when an entire field is flooded with water. Advantages: simple, low cost. And you may think, well, how do those plants grow? Well, some plants really want a lot of water like this. Rice is a great example of that. The drawback to this kind of irrigation is a lot of it is lost. 20% or so of that is lost to evaporation and that sort of thing. This can lead to waterlogging. Some plants can be waterlogged. Even roots of, like, say, rice can be waterlogged a little bit, deprived of oxygen, uneven water distribution. This kind of thing can be good, but can also not be good. It's a lot of water. Spray irrigation. This is sort of like these. This is a walking irrigation system. This one walks down the field. Some of them have central pivots where there's like a central area and pivot around in a circular fashion. There's usually some sort of motor tied to one end, not tied, attached or whatever, and it just walks down the field, sprays. It's kind of nice. Advantages: more efficient, spraying over the top, better coverage of the water, not as much water loss. It's very expensive to install, though, as you can imagine. It requires a lot of energy, requires a lot of upkeep. These things are not foolproof, and they break all the time. It requires someone who knows what they're doing. Can lead to salinization as well. We're going to talk about salinization. Next is drip irrigation. There's a couple ways this can be done. This is what this is called as drip tape that you're seeing there, and it is installed in the furrows. Could even be installed underground. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of manpower, a lot of money. All right. The advantages here, obviously, are going to be very little water loss, particularly for those that are installed underground. The water is going to go straight into the ground. The drawbacks is very expensive to set up, very expensive to maintain, and it's just not widely used in conventional farming because of that initial setup cost. I installed drip tape in a field, and it was horrible. The yields were good, but they weren't that much better or worse than anything else. And so that initial cost is expensive, and maybe it's not worth that. So let's look at some of the problems associated with this. Obvious one is groundwater depletion. there's not as much water going back into aquifers as we are taking out. So that means that eventually that aquifer is going to be at zero. Just something to think about, right? There's only so much of that can take place before we don't have any more aquifers. We're going to talk more about aquifers. It's just basically a giant water sink, right? So this is not good. Waterlogging, we mentioned salinization. Salinization is basically where water evaporates off of leaves or off the ground and leaves behind the salt that there's salt in the ground, right? And that salt is left behind and it concentrates. And if you salt the ground in a high concentration, it ruins it, right? That's kind of a euphemism, salting the fields, right? As a way of ruining agriculture. Some of the old military tactics were to just go ahead and to ruin everything as opposed to use it. It's just crazy. This is a big deal. It's how the oceans were originally formed, and it's not good. Here's an example of that. This is an example of fields that have been irrigated and salinized, right? Because of the arid climate, because it's so dry, water evaporates quickly, and any salt that is just continues to accumulate, and eventually accumulates so much that nothing will grow. And it's a very big problem in some parts of the world. The Ogallala aquifer is the biggest aquifer in North America, and you can see where it's at. It's like a big underground lake, almost like that's not really a good way of describing it, but you get the idea. The Ogallala aquifer, long-term overuse threatens agricultural sustainability in this area of the country, which is a big deal because there's a lot of food that's grown in that part of the country, and so it's significant. Let's look at a practice problem. A region facing groundwater depletion, soil salinization, is considering new agricultural methods, which methods will address both concerns. So we know that groundwater depletion is just has to do with any irrigation, right? Some irrigation systems are going to use more water than others. Salinization has to do with water evaporating off the soil or off the leaves. And so we need water coming from underneath. Which one's going to be best for that? Well, let's go see. Spray irrigation? Probably not. Flood irrigation? Definitely not. Drip irrigation? Sure, right? Very little water. It's going to conserve water. It's going to put it under the soil or right next to the base of the soil, and it's going to reduce salt buildup. We like C. I hope this video was helpful. We're going to be moving on to 5.6.